Hey, what is going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to video number 5 in the Blender tutorial series. That is Blender for Beginners. In this video, we're going to be learning a little bit about delete, fill, join, and maybe a few other things, right? Now, these are all really basic operations. Well, not basic operations, but they're operations you're going to use quite often as you get into modeling, okay? So I think that's important that we go over these things. There's going to be lots of things that we're, left to go over. And with that being said, I want to remind you that we are definitely going to be creating some sort of prefab placeable model, something that we can incorporate into our maps and thus into, the FS22 game, right? So trust me on that. We're going to be doing a lot of texturing. This is going to be a lot of really good stuff. All right. So I know some of you guys might be a little bit further along and you know most of this stuff, but stick with me. You may learn some things, or maybe you're just starting out, in which case this is perfect, right? You can learn from the ground up. But our end goal is going to be to create something for Farm Sim, right? And we're going to texture it, and you're going to learn a lot about texturing. Trust me. All right, so this is going to be good. So just stick with me. We got a handful of videos left to go over some of this stuff. We're all learning together, and this is really good. All right, so like I said, we're going to be going over deleting. Right, so I know deleting it. Deleting is really easy. We've done it. Speaking of deleting, you can see that my camera and my light are both missing for my outliner here because I don't need them, and you don't either, right? For what we're doing here, you don't need either one of those objects. That's more for if you're like gonna render some sort of scene. If you're working on a scene, you want to light your scene or light a certain object, but we don't really need it right now. Not to mention those objects can be brought back in at any time. You can create a light, you can create a camera, that type of thing. So you don't need it. So you can delete it if you want to. All right. And speaking of deleting, I don't even need this cube. So I'm going to delete that. Like I said, we did go over deleting. So deleting on the object level was easy enough. I just did it with the cube. And I'm going to bring another mesh object back in here, and it's going to be a cylinder. Okay. So deleting on the object level, super easy. All right. Deleting on the edit level as we're editing an object is no more complicated. All right. So you can delete, instead of deleting entire objects, you can delete just certain parts of your mesh. I know a lot of you guys might know this by now, but stick with me. All right. So between vertices select, edge select, and face select, you can delete any one of those objects that you want. Now, if I want to delete a face, like if you see this face right here underneath the 3D cursor, if I want to delete just that face, I don't necessarily have to select just the face, right? If I select all 4 of the vertices that make up that face, and speaking of vertices, you're going to have to excuse me on that one. I know that I have a bad habit of mixing up vertices, vertexes. I say it all sorts of different ways, none of which are probably even close to right. It's just a bad habit. I do know, the right words. They just don't come out what I want them to. But I promise I'll work on it. So, like I said, if you select all 4 of these vertices and you hit, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go really quick here, and I'm just going to hit delete and then E, or delete and V. V is in Victor, V for vertices. So delete vertices. All right. So I'm going to back that up really quickly and show you what just happened. I'm going to control Z. So I hit delete, and a menu popped up. Okay. So with that menu, you got vertices, edges, faces, and then, a bunch of other selections down there that you can play with at some point if you want to. All right. So this is kind of the way it goes as you get used to things, especially these hotkeys. You remember what does what, and you tend to go through them faster. Now you could also press X on your keyboard, and that will bring up the same menu, right? So it's more just a quick, EV, right? Delete and then V for vertices. Matter of fact, it was so quick I didn't even think it came up down here. All right, so you can see what had happened here now. When you delete the vertices, any other part of that mesh, right, that is dependent on that vertex is going to go with it. So this big chunk of 3 faces here all got deleted. Why? Because both of these edges depended on it. Yeah, I think the edge depended on it, but either both faces depended on those edges, right? So there's a lot that ended up going, right? So you got rid of the edges because they're connected to the vertices, and then the faces are connected to the edges. So you get the idea. right? So any part of that mesh that's dependent or it's dependent on, what you're trying to delete is going to go with it. Right. So the same thing goes for like edges. If you highlight an edge, you hit delete and then E for edge, you can see that two of them left, two faces, right? Because there was a face on either side of that edge that was dependent on that edge being there. All right. And then obviously, if you go into face mode, you select faces and then delete F for faces and you delete just the face. Now, depending on what mode you're in, like if you want to delete a face or if you want to delete, say, if you want to delete all of these vertices, like look at this in vertice mode, right? All of these vertices, if you want to delete all those along the top, you don't necessarily have to select all those. So you're not like locked into the mode, right? So if I want to delete these vertices, I don't have to be in that vertex select mode. I can be in face mode, right? Because this face connects to every one of those vertices. So if I hit delete, instead of hitting face, I hit vertices. So I want to delete the vertices. There you go. So everything connected to that face, like vertice wise, and everything connected to the vertice is going to go, right? So in this case, we lost everything but that very bottom part of the cylinder there. All right. So in a nutshell, that's the way delete works, right? So it's pretty easy. I'm sure you guys knew most of that by now. All right. Speaking of deleting, right, and edges and stuff like that, I'm going to go into edge mode and I'm going to pick an edge kind of right in the middle of this cylinder here, right? Now, what I'm going to do is instead of hitting delete and E for edge, I'm going to right click and I'm going to pick E for dissolve, right? So E for dissolve. So you can do it really quickly. You could just right click E for dissolve and you can see it deleted that edge. But you'll notice that it did not get rid of the face on either side that was dependent on that edge. What's going on here is dissolve is a way for Blender to try to delete what you're asking it to, right? In this case, an edge in a non-destructive way without, deleting or destroying, the connecting parts of your meshes, right? Of other things that rely on that edge. And in this case, that would have been the faces on either side. So what it did is it just kind of merged those faces together in the one. And then we were non-destructively able to delete that edge. Now take that with a grain of salt, okay? Because dissolve works good, but it has limitations, right? And I'm just going to put this out there that in any scenario, like maybe it's a complicated mesh or you're just asking it to do more than what it's designed to do, if it's not able to dissolve what you're asking it to, it will default over to just deleting, right? So if it can't do it, it's going to delete. So be careful of that. Sometimes you may not get the results that you want. All right. So I don't have any examples lined up for you, but just keep it in mind. Try to keep it simple, right? So if you just like simple edges and, nothing too crazy, with your dissolve, if you start getting in some just crazy geometry and you got all kinds of things highlighted and you try to dissolve it, probably not going to, get the result that you want, right? So just keep it simple, stupid. Okay. Yeah, everybody's heard that expression, right? I'm not calling you stupid. You know that. I wouldn't do that. All righty. So I'm going to get rid of this cylinder. Let me get rid of this. And we're going to start with, let's see here. I'm going to put another cube into the scene here. So Shift A, go to mesh. I'm going to go to cube. All righty. Now, the next thing I want to go over is it's called a fill. All right. So I'm going to highlight just this top face and I'm going to delete it. All right. So let's pretend that you're working on your model. It's weeks, months later, whatever. It's far enough along that you have it's basically an empty box. There's no lid on it. And somewhere along the way, you decide, you know what? I want there to be a top on that box. I want there to be another face up there. But what do? Okay. Like I said, you can't control Z. If you deleted it, you can't back up and undelete it. You have to figure something out. And that's where fill comes in. All right. And I'm not talking like Phil the guy. I don't even know who Phil the guy is, but trust me, we can fill this. All right. So I can either go into edge select and you can select the edges up top here, right? Hitting select or shift, I'm sorry, and selecting my edges and then typing F for fill. All right. And that will fill that in. I believe we can pick at least 3 out of the 4 vertices up top here, right? And then hit F or, maybe you do need all 4 of them. Okay. For some reason, I thought I remember doing 3 at one time and it filled it for me. That might have been something different, but you get the idea though, right? Selecting all 4 vertices, and that will fill for you. Okay. And it doesn't have to be necessarily just faces. Okay. So let's see if we get this lid back on here like so. Okay. All right. I'm going to delete all the sides of this, right? So I'm going to go into delete faces. Okay. And then go back into vertex select. All right. So if I select one vertice, okay, and come down to the next one, as long as these vertices are in the same object, you can't connect vertices that are not in the same object, or at least not like this. You can't. Okay. And hit F for fill, and you can reconnect those vertices, right? Not a problem. You can also, if you keep select pushed in, when you push when you hit your next vertices up here, next set, F for fill, now you got the face back and you got that extra edge that you were looking to get. All right. Now from here, I wouldn't recommend, keeping shift in, and you're going to get, you're going to get a result. Like if I hit shift and I try that again, you can see what's going to happen here. Oh no, it did work. For some reason, I don't know. See, I can see something that doesn't look quite right. See what you get right here? If you see my face here that has that weird look to it as I turn, it's got that shimmery type of, that's what's called Z fighting, which means I have more than one face trying to occupy that space right there. All right. And let's see. Yeah. And it was the last operation that did it. Okay. So I was right. You didn't get the results, quite the results you wanted to get. So what it did is it looks like it filled across here and across here. So it filled this a second time. I actually kind of expected one to shoot across the middle. So shows how much I know. But a lot of this stuff is, is you trial and error. This is kind of how you figure these things out. All right. So you can kind of see what Phil's doing here, right? Good old Phil. I love that guy. So if you do something, if you accidentally delete a face or do something that you didn't want to do, or maybe it was designed to be that way and you just changed your mind, there is ways that you can, fill that back in. So like I said, it works, with edges. You've seen that we can use 2 vertices, connect 2 vertices to, supply either a single edge or, select everything, and then we can fill in the face. Okay. And that's going to come in handy. Trust me, you're going to use that one a lot. Maybe not right away, but it will come up. Trust me on that one. Okay. So now speaking of Phil, right? Phil being the cool guy that he is, I'm going to delete this cube, get into object mode. Let me see. Am I over there? No, because see what's happened. I do this a lot too, and you're going to probably as well. Is I'm hovering over the outliner and I'm trying to get into object mode, and it's not letting me. I have to be. And I know I said this in the past. I have to be over top of the viewport. All right. So getting in the object mode, hover back over my outliner, delete the cube. All right, and then I'm going to shift A and another mesh. I'm going to bring back the cylinder that I had before. All right. But I want to show you something because Phil is smart. He's a smart guy. Right. And I'm going to show you, kind of what he's capable of here. So I'm going to go into, let's go into face select. I want to delete all these faces. Right. And now I got the top and the bottom of that cylinder left. All right. Now, what I want to show you is if, say, I don't know under what circumstances you would accidentally delete the middle of your cylinder, but it's smart that the way this works, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 4 of these vertices here, right? And fill that. Now that's what they would call a quad. I think we went over this. Quads and tris. Quads just have 4 sides, tris have 3. And you want to try and limit your model to just those. I mean, it's fine, if you get into like some kind of polygon or something like that, or an n-gon where, it has more than 4 sides, but in any case, you get the idea. So that's a quad. All right. So the way that Blender sees this, right? So it sees that these vertices are lined up one over top of the other, right? That they're perfectly in line. As a matter of fact, they don't even have to be perfectly in line. They can be skewed a little bit, not a lot, but they can be skewed a little bit. And Blender is still going to recognize these things. It's going to know what you want to do. All right. So now that I established the Blender, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. You know, I filled that face, and this is what I want to do. If I go over to Edge Select and I select just that edge, hit F, 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 F. Right? See what I'm doing here? So Blender's pretty smart. It knows what you're trying to do, and it's kind of helping you out. Bill, right? You helpful guy. But that's something, I mean, it's come in handy once or twice, and I actually stumbled upon that one. And it works, right? So it's certain circumstances that's going to come in handy, but nonetheless, it does come in handy, right? So that's in a nutshell, it's fill. All right. That's how fill works. Okay. All right. Let me see what else I have for you here. All right. I'm going to control Z here. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to control Z and get rid of some of those faces that I put in there. All right. Just a couple things I want to show you quickly. I know I was just getting ready to skip on to the next subject, but I remembered a few things here. One is that this has to have the exact same number of vertices, right? Top and bottom, right? For this to work. I think I mentioned that. They don't necessarily have to be in line. I think I mentioned that. But what I wanted to show you is as you're filling, right? So I selected an entire quad right here and I press F and I keep going. All right. If I was to select, let's say, just a single vertice, let me see how this works here. Okay. Now you can see what happened is it kind of made a triad of it. It just filled in a triangle. Now, if I was to hit F again for fill, it fills in the rest of it. It just kind of keeps on going. Now I'm skewed, which isn't ideal, but you get the idea. It still did what I wanted it to do. All right. As far as filling. Now, I believe if there was objects on either side of this, it would have retained, it being straight as far as, how these are right here. So you can see that once I selected that single vertex there and tried it, it kind of skewed everything from there on out. Let me see if let's put that to the test really quick. I like testing things out. So let's try taking these, right? And we'll fill that. Now I'm not sure if I can go back and select just this single edge and then fill from there. Yes, I can. All right. So let's go back into vertex mode. Single vertex, hit fill. I got my triangle, hit fill again. See, it does. Okay, there it goes. Now it actually filled in that gap, but it doesn't keep going from there. But like I said, it does come in handy. So fill, it's smart, right? It does a lot of things that you wouldn't normally expect from it. And I want to say that in a lot of ways, you may not use everything that it's capable of, right? Because there's just scenarios that you're probably never going to find yourself in, to be honest. All right. So let me delete the cylinder because I have a couple other things I want to show you here. So back into object mode. All right. I'm going to delete that. There we go. All right. So let me get another object going here. Shift A. Okay. What do I want? Actually, you know what? I want another cylinder. Let's do I know I shouldn't have deleted the last one. That's fine. All right. So I want to get into join. Okay. Join something that's going to come in pretty handy. All right. So you can see, obviously, we have this cylinder here again. Now, if I want to take two of these vertexes here, vertices, and I want to connect these. Okay. So we have already established that fill, right? I can go from one side to the other, right? So I can hit F for fill, and there you go. Right. So we've got, an edge that shoots across where we wanted it, but there's kind of a problem with that. All right. If I select this face, you can see the entire face is selected. And that's not what I want. I was trying to divide that. I want to make two faces out of that. So that's not necessarily what I wanted, right? So instead of F for fill, J for join. All right. So I want to basically join these and make one single, like, continuous edge, basically. So I want to join at the vertex or at the vertices, I want that to basically join. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. But we're joining. So if you want this, to be divided into two separate geometries, right? Then you need to join. So if you look now, they're both selectable, right? So instead of that one continuous face, I now have two. All right. And what happens there is it respects the geometry that's underneath it. I don't know how else I want to explain that either. It just whereas fill just kind of it filled it, and it created an edge, but an independent of what's underneath it. It's not incorporated into it's not joined into the face that's underneath it, right? So you can see how join works just a little bit differently, right? And that's something that, you're going to want to utilize quite often, right? There's going to be plenty of scenarios. And it's good to know. It's good to know that you can join these instead of, I've seen people do, go as far as, selecting and I saw this on a video. I saw them hit E for extrude, and now they had like auto join or something, filled or turned on, and they joined these two vertexes to or two vertices together, and it did basically the same thing as fill would have done. It just created a single edge, but independent of the face that was underneath it. All right, now there is one more way to go about it, right? So if you hit K for knife, all right. And these are all over on this sidebar, by the way. Where is knife? It's in here somewhere, I'm pretty sure. Ruler. I'm not sure. And you know what? I'm not even familiar with the toolbar half of the time because I don't use it. All right. So I'm going to select that vertex there, and I'm going to shoot across to the other one, and I'm going to select that one. I'm going to hit enter back into face mode. And there you go. So it basically did the same thing as join. It kind of bisected those two. It cut right through it and created two separate faces. Now, I don't really want to spend too much time on the knife tool because we are going to get into that later on. I just wanted to show you that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So if you wanted to bisect that face up top there, join will certainly do that for you. Okay. All right. Now with join, you're not limited, obviously, to just that one line. You can join as many of these as you want, right? So you can hit another one here, right? And then select that face. Okay. Now, and that's just a way, just another tool at your disposal, right? Depending on how you use it, it helps you to obtain a more complex shape than what you originally started with. Okay. So you couldn't do this typically, with a cylinder, or at least with the top of a cylinder. There was some additional work that needed to be done there. And we accomplished that using joins. All right. I don't know. There's really nothing else I want to say about that, I guess. I think that may be it. This is probably one of my shorter videos in this series. All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. All right. So, hopefully that few tidbits of information came in handy, and you're going to be able to use that in your modeling, like somewhere down the road, hopefully very soon. And I'm going to leave it there. So with that being said, I'm Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.